think the new political tool to undermine your opponent is to link the person with Russia.
Blacklisted is a Russian propagandist. A Danish journalist provokes the anger of an EU watchdog after her articles criticise European policies. The Washington Post takes aim at RT, publishing an editorial accusing this channel of failing to do its job. We look at its claims. And we hear from a Russian family keeping a lynx in their flat and look at the controversial issue of having wild animals as pets. Hello there, you're watching RT International, broadcasting to you live from Moscow. I'm Nikki Aaron. Thank you for joining us this hour. Our top story this hour, a Danish journalist claims she's being hounded for spreading so-called Russian misinformation. That's after her statements on European migrant policy were published by RT and the website Russia Insider. The European communication watchdog has put journalist Iben Tranholm on a list of so-called Russian propagandists. The case sparked a fiery debate in the Danish parliament.
The government is very concerned with the Russian-controlled systematic use of disinformation in the form of lies and deliberate manipulation of facts, which are spread in bad faith and with a desired detrimental effect.
Does the minister think it is appropriate that a prominent Danish Islam critic has been put on the EU East Stratcom task force's list regarding Russian disinformation because she writes that Europe is failing its own values by allowing large Muslim immigration to Europe? You criminalize certain positions, especially EU-critical and Islam-critical positions. It's a witch hunt of certain positions and people.
In the case of the contributions to the debate of debater Iben Tranholm that was published in the Russian Insider back in October 2015, I agree with the task force assessment that it constitutes a typical example of the Kremlin's narrative about the West's moral collapse.
So criticism of Islam and EU criticism is all Russian disinformation. We obviously have to call the Kremlin to hear what to think. It is not about whether the minister agrees with Iben Tranholm or not. It's a question of whether it's okay that the EU makes lists of positions that are acceptable and attitudes that are unacceptable.
The list mentioned just now was put together by the EU's Stratcom task force. It was set up in 2015 with the express purpose of countering Russia's alleged disinformation campaigns. We spoke to the Danish journalist at the centre of it all, Iben Tranholm, about the accusations of spreading so-called Russian misinformation.
Today it's me who is on the list. Tomorrow it could be a different journalist, another journalist who has, you know, similar views. They didn't write me any emails and said, you know, we think but what you have written is quite problematic. Could you try to give us some kind of explanation why you wrote this or whatever? We could have a kind of dialogue about it. Nothing. They claim that I'm damaging, I'm doing harm to the EU just by criticizing them. I criticize them for the immigration policy. That is a narrative that, I mean, people in the EU disagree. The new political tool to undermine your opponent is to link the person with Russia or claim that there are close ties between this person and Russia, and then this person is just not trustworthy anymore. It's a kind of character assassination. In case of war, I mean, I would be considered an enemy of the state because I have written this kind of, or I have this kind of views, which is now regarded as Russian disinformation. I guess they're very concerned about the EU narrative and their idea of, the whole identity of the European Union. It's hard to believe that the modern democratic Europe has ended up in some kind of totalitarian or semi-totalitarian democracy where our leaders has a special definition of what is democracy, and if you don't agree with that, you would be put on the list. I think it's very, very, very alarming and very disturbing.
Mainstream and social media have been awash with conspiracy theories after the US cable TV network C-SPAN was suddenly interrupted by a broadcast of this very channel for 10 minutes. Coverage of proceedings in the House of Representatives was replaced by RT's newsfeed. Miguel Francis Santiago has been taking a look at the frenzy it caused.
It's good to feel powerful. People are scared of clandestine powers and constantly fear your next move.
With a bill that would basically take our cop on the block, the SEC, and literally obliterate.
"10 minutes of Kremlin propaganda in the middle of a cable feed, and everyone's spooked. Politicians, including the speaker who was on at the time.
While I'm on the floor of the House talking about Trump and Russia, I get interfered with and interrupted by Russia Today. It's strange. It's odd.
Surprised C-SPAN was interrupted by RT, the Kremlin-backed TV network. I thought that doesn't happen until Jan 20th.
The internet.
This is no accident. We are obviously in a cyber war with Russia.
Why does this give me the serious creeps?
In any other year, I'd assume someone at C-SPAN hit the wrong button. But in 2017, who knows?
The channel says it's an internal routing issue. You know, when you push the wrong button. But they're going to investigate the matter thoroughly. Maybe, though, it's just that the Congresswoman mentioned Russia. Because whenever you do, something bad happens.
Mike Pompeo, the CIA director, almost swearing that they're going to be hardliners on Russia.
And who's going to investigate that?
The Intelligence Committee's assessment that Russia, at the direction.
Just after the incoming CIA director uttered the word Russia, the lights went off. Scary stuff.
Did he then disappear? I've seen this act before in Vegas.
Electricity grid hacked?
Putin.
But then, who was behind this?
They were probably sent here so that we put them in our jails. Because to put them in our jails, they didn't pay the electric bill. To put them, oh, I like that much better.
Now, surely the U.S. would want revenge. So, could this be the CIA at work?
Each of you can be tracked by intelligence. All the information you transfer can be in the NSA's files. Seems like they're listening. Probably I said something wrong.
Well, looks like we've now reached the point where coincidences are impossible. Nothing is random. Evil Russian spies and propaganda are always to blame. But hang on, maybe sometimes just people press the wrong button and power grids get overloaded. Oops, I think I said too much. Miguel Francis Santiago, RT.
As many rush to blame Russia for the C-SPAN interruption, American lawyer and journalist Glenn Greenwald has pointed out how many recent media stories on Russia have quickly backtracked. Amid the C-SPAN media frenzy, Fortune magazine was forced to issue a correction over a false headline. It claimed C-SPAN confirmed it was briefly hacked by a, quote, Russian news site, which wasn't the case. The Washington Post also recently had to admit its story incorrectly said Russian hackers penetrated the US power grid, despite authorities saying there was no indication of that. In another case, the Washington Post itself exposed the Slate magazine in its story about a Trump-Russia email server link that turned out to be false. We heard from several analysts on why an apparent technical failure at the C-SPAN TV network caused such an outcry.
There's no question that today's boogeyman is Russia. If it was Luxembourg, nobody would have given a second thought, right? And common sense doesn't matter anymore. I mean, you think Russia Today was looking for all those 15 viewers that C-SPAN has? The media treats us as if we're idiots, and they just shovel this junk down our gullet, and then, you know, later on, oh, we'll fix it later on when nobody's looking. The journalism is taking a significantly hard hit over the last 6 months to a year. There's no question about it.
According to the Western mainstream media, Russia's capable of hacking U.S. elections. Russia's going to invade half of Europe whenever Putin feels like it. Russia, along with China, has taken over all of Asia, and the next president of the United States is a Russian puppet. What a load of rubbish. This is just a bit of a joke, and I think it ought to be taken that way by anyone who considers themselves even remotely serious.
The Washington Post has launched another attack on RT, this time claiming the channel is not very good at its job. It backs up the story with facts and figures. My colleague Rory Souchet did a little homework to find out whether the newspaper's claims are actually true.
You might have probably heard that RT is a propaganda machine. Well, so did a number of American news outlets. Okay, fine, if you say so. But when these credible news outlets get their facts wrong, well, we get a little bit offended. Take the latest piece from the Washington Post. Apparently, we're not doing our job very well. Let's have a look. They say that RT has a very small audience. Hardly anyone watches us. Only 500,000 viewers on a daily basis. 800 million views on YouTube since 2005, they say. Well, yes, that would have all been correct 5 years ago. The figures don't lie, folks. RT YouTube network is the most watched TV news network on YouTube in the world. Over 4 billion views. Well, according to the Washington Post, it's all thanks to viral clips of insane weather and people doing crazy things. Yeah, okay. Here's a quick checklist. Trump's victory speech got 3.7 million views. Putin speaking on Trump's victory, 2.4 million views. RT election coverage got 1.3 million views on RT and RT America. And live stream from New York anti-Trump protests, yes guys, anti-Trump, that also got 1.4 million views. So it's not all wild weather and wacky weirdos, and yet, here's another accusation. Apparently we have a thing for Trump. Maybe we do. Who doesn't? But it's simply incorrect to say that RT is credited for denigrating Hillary Clinton. That credit goes to Julian Assange and his interview to John Pilger. But you probably just forgot to mention that, didn't you? So, dear Washington Post, if indeed you want to call us names, by all means do so. But do us one small favor. Just be sure to get your facts right.
One more thing the Washington Post got wrong was saying RT was not available for comment. After we contacted them, a disclaimer was added to the article admitting their mistake.